Hi there, welcome to our Performance Edge Weekly Wisdom, where spirit drives performance. Coach Sol here. Today we are going to discuss about setbacks. Yes, one of my favorite topics. How do you recover and how do you rebound from setbacks? Specifically today, how do you rebound in business, in your career, from setbacks? And if you're an athlete or you are an artist, how do you overcome performance setbacks, performance fluke? So by the end of this video today, not only will you understand what is a setback and how they occur, but also you will be equipped with practical guidance for transforming disappointment and self-doubt and into anticipation about the new possibilities from the seemingly situation failure. And best of all, exclusively here, I'm going to share with you the anatomy of setback from a new understanding, a new lens that was understood since ancient Egypt, and how it has been used since the dawn of time by the masters as a redemptive creative power to rise higher, stronger, faster, and wiser. As the phoenix will rise back up from its own ashes. I'm excited. Hope you are. Ready? Let's get started. Let's face it, it's not easy to recover from setbacks, whether it's in business, from a big career disappointment, being fired, or missing your quarterly results, right? If you're a CEO or a CFO, or if you're a business owner, right? Or as an athlete, or a setback in sport through injuries, or not making the cut to the team, or losing the game, or choking, for the championship game you trained so hard for. Or if you're an artist, a setback in a performance fluke. Because the natural instinct and response that many people fall into are constrictive feelings like anger, denial, disappointment, self-doubt, and much more that we will explore in this video. But the greatest performer of all time, they understand the secret and the magic of this moment. They understand the redemptive power of setbacks. So here in this video today, we will explore the many facets of setbacks. So after watching today's video, not only will you learn how to rebound from career setbacks, and for athletes or performer or artists, how to overcome setbacks, right, in sport or in your performance. Also, most importantly, in today's video, you will understand the anatomy of setbacks and why it is a necessary ingredient for human excellence. So in today's video, I will introduce you to a total new understanding of setbacks from an applied spirit lens, which will help you transform any type of setbacks you will encounter moving forward, whether it's in a relationship, a breakup, a business hiccup, or a performance fluke. That's gonna be vital for you. And lastly, if you stick around till the end, I will teach you an effective insight that you can use even during the worst setback you might be facing, that will help you calibrate so you can anticipate and overcome setback will they arise. So first, let's calibrate about setback. What is a setback? So, to level set, a setback is an event that delays or prevents or even seems to reverse progress toward a predetermined direction, right? And here I want you to pay attention. The key word here is predetermined direction, right? So please take mental note of this as we'll come back to this notion later. So a setback is an event that delays, prevents, or even seems to reverse progress toward a predetermined direction. So let's dive in when you look at the current situation, specifically about work-related setbacks. So according to an article in Harvard Business Review, when it comes to career-related setbacks, many people sink into anger or denial or blaming situational factors of company politics. So those are the facts that happen when we get really surprised. And in parallel, for athletes in sport, there are performance setbacks, championship losses, but the most obvious one and harsh are physical injuries. And that's what we're going to address here in this video. As you know, we will be able to address the most of it. So as it is stated from research in the book, Train Your Mind to Bounce Back Stronger from Sports Injuries, the authors are really confirming the research that injuries affect every athlete, and it can feel like the most devastating event possible, right? While some athletes are destroyed by the experience, others emerge from their recovery better, stronger, and more confident than ever. And those are the facts when you look at the research that's happening. So what are the experts suggesting? They're suggesting about 2-3 steps here that I'm gonna really give when it comes to career, and also look at the sport-related setbacks. But when it comes to career setbacks, according to the article from Harvard Business Review, the first thing you need to figure out from setback is, when a career setback is, figure out why you lost, right? Figure out why you lost. So what it means is that you got to figure out what went wrong and focus on what you can control. Make sure that you make a difference between what you can influence, what you can control, and what you cannot. And when you dig deeper in that, you come out and ask yourself, what could you do differently next time? Right? In that stage, that first step of figure out what you lost is not obvious, because many high achievers usually take too much credit for their successes and are seeing too much external blame for their setbacks or failure. And it's a bias that happens to protect their self-esteem. But on the other side, that impedes learning and growth. So that's a problem. So what is found from research is that those who rebound from career losses take a decidedly different approach, right? Instead of getting stuck in grief or blame, they actively explore how they contributed to what went wrong. And in that, they make sure to evaluate whether they have side of the situation correctly and they reacted appropriately. So in doing that, they consider what they will do differently, right, if given the chance again, right? So in doing that, they gather feedback from a wide variety of people, whether it's, their managers, their peer, and, whoever, they're serving. So, asking that they want honest feedback and not consolidations. So that first step of figure out why you lost is critical in terms of career setback. The second step in that is identify a new path, because that step is to objectively weigh in the potential for turning your loss into a win, whether it's at a different role in your organization, a move to a new company, or a shift, right, to a different industrial career. Because in doing that, reframing losses as opportunities involve hard thinking about who you are and what you want to become, right? Because in that, you are encouraged to sharpen and strengthen maybe new skills, and which will highlight in that stage the tension people feel when they are torn between hanging on onto their current identity and expectation versus letting go. So the second step, identifying new path. The first step that the expert suggests is seize the right opportunity, right? In that you are reimagining your professional identity. It's one thing, and bringing it to life, is that challenge, right? So why it's important, because what you need to know is that you will bring with you the lessons learned from the setback. So you may also have to revise your definition of success and expand your view of success, right? When prioritizing, and that can change dramatically over time. For example, it's important to say, depending on the life stage you're in, where you have children being born, you moving out, or breakup, divorce, parents' death, right? So, or midlife, so there are changes in there. So it's really about seizing that and being present, choosing the right opportunity, as a lot has to do when things happen. So those are the top 3 steps that the article and the experts suggest. And I have for you as well. They have a test, a mirror test they call How to Do You Rebound from Career Setbacks. It's about 12 questions. You can just take it maybe a 2-3 minute test that I have it right here after the article. You can look at the video. You can take that will help you to figure out where you're at. So I suggest that if you want to do it, right? So now let's pivot to the sport-related setbacks. What are some of the practical steps you can do? So for sport-related setbacks, athletes, face is how do I come back from where I was and reach a higher level of performance, right? They're asking themselves, how do I get past a roadblock I have been stuck in all the times? So the reality is that both mentally and physically, for athletes, uncertainty arises, especially from injuries, from setbacks, and there are so many questions that they have and not answered. And so the good news for the athlete is that research has begun to demonstrate, and this is from a review by the Australian scientists published in the British Journal of Sport Medicine, that you can work on your mental skills to improve your injury experience. So in that, there are about 2 steps that are really critical. It's kind of similar, but to what we just saw in the career setbacks. But for athletes, step 1, figure out what went wrong. What went wrong? Even if it was an unfortunate injury, could you have prevented it somehow? Ask yourself honestly that question. Did you put yourself into a situation that you could have avoided? Was it borderline? Right? So really look at the situation. Were you blindsided? So what went wrong? Analyze that. And the step 2 is really stay focused on what you can control. Focus on the process of recovery, right? One day at a time. What can you influence and what can you control, right? And in that, other research has shown that deliberate focus, practice like goal setting, imagery, and target self-talk can affect how athlete recovers. So in that, it's really important in that deliberate practice to ask yourself and in your focus to see at a higher level, right? In terms of finding a purpose, right? And looking, okay, it's not only about focusing on the injury, but asking yourself, go upstream, remind yourself, but why you want to get better, right? It's not like, okay, I want to get back on the field, or maybe I like to run again on what pain, right? But maybe it can be even further, right? The greater purpose might be providing for your family, right? Or maybe honoring a promise that you did to your grandma or your granddad, right? So during pursuing those hard times. So focusing on that will help you, as an athlete to recover faster. And, by focusing on what you can control and by focusing on the process. So those are basically the 2-track path when you look at setbacks, both from a business career perspective and from an athletic perspective. When you look at that, it's important to look at some of the results, right? And look at really the fact. The research have proven that less than 20% of people successfully achieve a goal the first time around. So what that means, it's normal and it's expected for setback to occur. So in other words, it's not a challenge. It's not if a challenge will happen. It's when. So when you know this, it's important to anticipate that the main task will be how to effectively manage a setback when it arises. So that's really critical point here, and that's important. And so when you look at it, nowadays studies have shown that people lose sight of that. Whether it's on a career perspective, studies have shown that losing a job can increase risk of suicides. And in fact, this year we saw that increase because the loss of a job not only cause financial stress and difficulty, but also it affects a person's self-worth, its person's purpose and direction. So it's not uncommon to feel that you have failed as a person, failed your family, failed your community. So going through a grief process with a job loss is expected, right? So that mental health conditions are important. So from a career setback, it's important to look at that perspective and know that it's happening. And when you look at sports injuries, according to the National Safety Council, sport and recreational injuries increased 12% in 2022 last year. And they estimate that about 3.6 million people were treated in emergency department for injuries involving sport and recreational equipment. While the top activities associated with injuries are exercising, cycling, and basketball. So these hurdles and setbacks are happening and we cannot neglect them. But the challenge is that people are still have hurdle and why people struggle. And quite frankly, it's because of two main reasons. And I'm going to share that. And really my goal right here is for you to really understand this part, because this is really a special lens I'm going to share with you that if you really grasp this will help you to handle any setback as you move forward, right? So the reason there are hurdles and people still struggle, even there are setback, is the number one reason. It's a lack of understanding. Lack of understanding in a cycle of loss, in a cycle of grief, and lack of understanding of a cycle of setback. Because a natural cycle, when setback occurs, is that you start with shock and denial about events. That's just a natural cycle. Whether it's for an injury you were not expecting, or a career you get fired, or you don't get the results you want. So there is the first step that's natural, is people start with shock and denial about the event. The second step in a cycle is after that denial and shock or lack of acceptance, people move on to anger and blame, right? And if it's a career, change or firing, they make a blame to a company, to a boss, right? Bargaining over their fate. That's the second step. And the first step, that's when people really start looking at getting over it by trying to get healed, healing one hurt feeling, right? Get over it, trying to revive, regain. And they ask themselves, this is where the licking the wound starts. And in doing that, they ask themselves whether they can never regain the respect of their peers and teams again. And in that, the healing is there. Now, the fourth step in that cycle is the stage of acceptance. So this is where a lot of people get stuck because of lack of understanding. In that linear paradigm, there is an identity crisis, an identity lost. And you can call it being caged in identity. It's cage of identity. Because this is where people label themselves from human doing to human being. And we interchange this back and forth without knowing it. So decoupling human doing from human being is really the solution. So decoupling is a key to liberation. What do I mean by that? If you're an athlete, labeling yourself, I'm a quarterback, right? I'm a ring earner, I'm an Olympian. Or if you're in business, I'm a CEO, I'm a CFO, I'm a VP, I'm this leader. So that's what your vocation, that's what your job has been, right? So when you couple your identity with that, that's when you are caged. That's when you're labeling yourself. And that's where human doing versus human being is. So when you lose that job, as an athlete, you suffer an injury, when you have that coupled, it's like a sudden death. Because the identity that is linked with doing want to keep and stay alive. So in that, the key is to realize that you matter, you are important, that you are enough because of your existence, who you are, not because of what you do or what you did. Not because of the ring you did, not because of, even if you're providing, right? Because decoupling that perspective shift will liberate you from the shackle of identity. So that's the first step. Really, you need to understand that lack of understanding, that really decoupling, understanding the cycle of lust, and really being able to kind of really look at where you are. And so the second bigger thing that while people struggle is people need a new understanding, need a new paradigm. And the solution lies in understanding a new paradigm that was understood in ancient Egypt. And you can find out more about that by watching my video about the quantum door. And the quantum door is a spirit elevation platform system that equips people to move them from being rigid, from being stuck, from being overwhelmed, to move them from being effectively in the flow and ease state of optimal performance. So what is that new paradigm, you might be asking? And the new paradigm is understanding that there are three main drivers, right? The three main drivers. And the three main drivers are social conformity, self-projection, and resources. So social conformity is to think of it as a pressure and the unseen or unspoken rule that are imposed on people by accepted society norms. And as I like to point out, with social media nowadays, right? Looking at all of them and the 24 hours news cycle, conformity is elevated to critical levels. So, and for self-projections, it reflects the doubt, the fear, I'm not enough, the self-talk, negative self-talk that are inherited through our personalities and our weaknesses, right? And finally, when you look at resources as a third driver, they are important, especially if there is a perception of scarcity. Like, will I have enough money? Will I have enough time? Or will I have enough energy to survive or satisfy my needs and want? Right? And why is that important? Because from these drivers, the brain delete, distort, or generalize. Right? So the brain does those three things, and from that creates illusions. Right? And illusions are what create in our reality to deny emotionally, or to avoid or to escape, or to bury the true emotions. So we do that because of the illusions we have that are inherited from the three drivers. So that's important, because what happened, the reason there is a pain is because of denial, trying to avoid or escape, or to bury the true emotions. From that understanding, what appears as a setback is in fact a misalignment from your authentic spirit desires to the reality you are experiencing. So the setback you experience is a reflection of a gap between your authentic desires versus the reality you are experiencing. Right? So here is the good news. It's a wake-up call that you need to that means you need to handle now. And the bad news is that if you don't, depression, frustration, all that, all the way sometime to suicide goes back. But what that means is setbacks are reflecting that there are illusions on your way of your authentic desire trying to express themselves in your reality. Because illusions are made up reflection and they have no animating power for existence. So that understanding of that new paradigm that the quantum door teaches is really important. And so you understand what setbacks are from that context. And I really want to make sure that you understand that. So now you might be asking, so what do I do instead? And perfect transition, because I'm going to share right now the couple of steps that you need to do. So the first step is really to understand the basic spirit indicator. It's tension, right? And so what do I mean by tension? You need to understand that tension derives from what you just talked about. The illusions from the drivers versus your authentic desire that want to express themselves. So you experience tension. You are unable to see when you are not able to see your true reflection because of illusions that are on your way, like a dusty mirror, right? So the illusions interfere for you to see your true reflection, and that causes misalignment. And that's where you feel pain. So that's the first thing you need to understand in what you need to do, right? And the second thing that's important is what I call radical honesty. Radical honesty in being self-honest. Not that I'm not saying you're not honest, but be honest with yourself. So under that, what that means, first, ask yourself, what stage are you in? We talk about the 4 stages in a loss cycle, right? So that self-honesty is about that. It's asking yourself, what stage are you in? Are you in the shock and denial stage, which is the first stage? Are you in an anger and blaming stage, right? Or are you in a licking your wound stage? Or are you in acceptance stage? So that's what I mean by radical honesty first. So what stage are you in? So identify that without trying to speculate, but just by being honest with yourself. And then now the next stage after you identify that is you need to understand the tension you are feeling, right? What is a tension? Is it the self-worth? Is it self-esteem? And so I'm going to just share with you, because what I'm sure is that if you are experiencing a setback, you are probably experiencing one of the key emotions I'm going to share here. And I will be really curious if you can add in the comment. So you will be experiencing either fear, either anger, either frustration, either disappointment, either regret, either sadness, either overwhelmed, either shame, either guilt. So I'm sure that at 95% you are experiencing either one of these feelings that I just went over, or a mix of them. So here I won't have time to go over all of them, because I'm going to give you 2 practical tools about the most frequented tension people feel, so that you can deal with them. And then if you need more, I will share with you at the end 3 resources on how you can access more at the end of a video. So again, let's look at the first one that's most common. It's frustration, the tension of frustration. So frustration, if you're facing frustration from that setback right now, what that means is that your brain believes that you could be doing better than what actual right now. So that's a good news in a way. It's a positive signal. So what that means is that you can be doing better than what's happening to you. So that means you need a small adjustment. So for that, you can brainstorm, and you need to be flexible. You need to change your approach, or maybe you need to add more skills. So if you have frustration as a tension, it is a good sign, because it tells that you can do better, and if that's the way your brain feels. So which means you need to just change an angle and the perspective in order to adjust yourself. So your setback means that it's something that is surmountable. So that will be really the signal from frustration. Now, something deeper above frustration is disappointment, that a lot of people feel when there are setbacks. And disappointment is important for you to understand. It means that the goal you had, is not going to happen. So it's a feeling of being defeated. But again, this is important from an applied spirit perspective, because it means an expectation, an image, or a value you had is not going to be manifested or actualized. So why is that relevant? Because the expectation of an image is a predetermined direction you had made for yourself. And that's important, because if you remember in the beginning, how do we define a setback? A setback is an event that delays, prevent, or even seem to reverse progress toward a predetermined action. And I talk about how the key word is predetermined action. So in a case of disappointment, here it's important that an expectation, an image, a predetermined direction you had, right, is not going to happen. So what that means? That means that now it's a chance for you to review that image. It's a chance for you to review that expectation. And now you know better, because now you understand that through a quantum law that there are three drivers, right? We talk about social conformity, we talk about self-projection, and we talk about resources. So now that you are initiated, in a case of disappointment, if you are in that experiencing that tension, is ask yourself, the image, the goal, the expectation, the value you had that's not going to happen, are those through any filter of the three drivers? So if you do that analysis, that's where you have to do a deep dive analysis and be self-honest. In other words, just to give you an example, if one of your goals, for example, was to be a CEO, right, and you just have 2-3 years of experience, and you are let go, or they tell you to wait, that delay and that setback that you might feel, was it through what? Social conformity? What was your expectation based on? So that's really where the three drivers, combining that and understanding the tension, comes into full circle, right? So that's where you ask yourself, should we change your expectation? How authentic the goal and the expectation was. If it was an authentic goal, it is okay. So then you ask yourself, is it a delay? So if it's a delay, it's a learning opportunity for you. And regardless of what you believe, but sometimes there is that saying that I like, say God's delay are not God's denial. So maybe it was maybe it's a chance for you to strengthen some skills so you can even build them further, right? So that's really the case of disappointment. And again, I would love to go over, a case of fear, anger, or, regret, sadness, overwhelm, shame, and guilt, but I don't have time for the sake really of providing you value here. So I will share with you at the end again how you can get access to free resources. But so now let's talk about the number 3 step that help you to really defeat any setback. So just as a quick reminder, we talk about first, need to understand the tension, right? Need to understand that the tension arises from illusion, the difference between the illusion that come from the drivers versus your authentic desire. And the second step, we talk about being self-honest, radical honesty, where in that you need to understand what stage are you in, right, from a cycle of loss. And then second, you need to understand the nature of the tension. Now, the number 3 things that I want to talk about that's important into that, what you need to do is understanding of a redemptive power of setbacks. Yes, the redemptive power of setbacks. Again, in a way, it's like the resurrection power. Since it's a misalignment, now that you understand, between your authentic desire and your reality, what that means is that the goal and the work, the spiritual work for you, is to help you realign. That's really the power of understanding this stage. Because now you understand that the setback is a need to realign yourself with your authentic desire, because there are illusions that are on your way. Since it's a misalignment, the goal is to help you realign, right? And this is where it's important, because when you think about it, any growth in nature, any organic growth does not happen without resistance. In other words, just to give you a simple example, if you work out in a gym, there are weight resistance, and from that, you get stronger. You look at a coconut tree that resists the wind. The only reason it resists the wind is because it's through the wind, it's able to go braze its roots deeper, right, in the soil. So any growth that happens needs resistance. So resistance is inherent in the growth. And that's what I mean by redemptive power of setbacks. Because without setbacks, there is no chance to develop growth. So I like that. And so it's really important that we remind ourselves that. In other words, if you look at that's the way nature is built. Because if you think about it, like there is that prayer that says, I have asked the divine for courage, and I was faced with a situation where I faced fear. Right? In other words, you have to be in a situation of being afraid in order to exercise courage. Right? Otherwise, you won't be able to exercise your courage. So in that, there is a reciprocal nature of setbacks that has a spiritual dimension, and I want to bring here as an applied spirit coach. And that's the redemptive power of setbacks. Right? And I'm going to repeat that. God's delay are not God's denial. So those are the 3 steps that when you understand that from a applied spirit perspective, you can turn setbacks into. So I want you to really pay attention here, because this tip is, even if you face the worst of a setback, this will help you. What do I mean by that? This is where you need to ask yourself, am I facing any feeling of pride? So ask yourself, do I have any feeling of pride here? So basically, track retention. Do you have any feeling of pride? And pride is related to identity here. Right? We talk about the 4th stage, acceptance. The reason people really have issues because there is that connection between doing and being, human doing and human being. So here ask yourself, do I have any feeling of pride? And here is a beauty. Because the masters throughout all culture and ages, they have talked about the resurrection power of setbacks. So the elixir against pride is curiosity. Curiosity, and most importantly, it's humility. And humility here is important because it's saying yourself, there is a cosmic order. Even though I'm a creator, I'm a creation before I'm a creator. That's where humility is. And that's where true alchemy is. And that's what all the masters have talked about. Because even if you understand the word humility, has the root humus, which means rich ground, it's fertile ground. So in being humble, there is richness. That's when you transmute pride into gold, into a fertile soil. And that's the power right there. So that's a bonus. Transmute pride into gold. And that's what all the masters have talked about. And that's a resurrection power, like a phoenix. And again, I'm sure I want to talk about this. I can talk about this all day long. This is, as I share, this is one of my favorite topics. But if you want to know more and continue this conversation, please sign up to our brand new community, Free Souls. Again, Free Souls, and you will get access to more tips and relevant answers to your real problems. The link is in my comment below. And also, if you have any issue you want me to talk about, like we didn't get a chance to address some of the tension here, you can submit that in the comments below, or you can request specific videos, topics, by logging on to www.thequantumdo.com/videos. And really, before I leave you today, I want to really talk to you, because here is why it's important about setbacks. So as you have seen, setbacks can be the most devastating performance killer if not handled with higher awareness. Our natural instinct is to feel victim of an unwanted, disrupted event that comes our way as a progress stopper from a predetermined destination we had set our eyes and our mind and our heart on. So whether it's through a breakup, a career setback, an injury setback, or a performance fluke, yes, setbacks can be used as a fuel and as a fertilizer for the initiated adept that understand the redemptive power of setbacks, as we have seen. Because even the worst of setback is in fact a gift for our greater evolution, as shared since the dawn of times. In all traditions, the masters have shared about the power of resurrections through trials. In ancient Egypt, Osiris' death from Seth, his brother giving rise to Horus, or mythology alike of the phoenix rising from its own ashes, becoming stronger from his own death. All these are analogies and reflection about the spiritual dimensions of setbacks. That's why I'm here as an applied spirit coach and a performance coach to provide you these different angles that have been known since ancient Egypt, so you can leverage your spirit to optimize your performance. Yes, the secret is to understand the anatomy of setbacks, to liberate yourself, and so that you can use every setbacks as a lever for your next evolution. When you understand that, you adhere to my favorite quote. As always, my favorite quote: failure is a necessary prerequisite for human excellence. Till next time, live your truth. Coach Soul, out.